Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Effie and this is Effie is Reading, and today I'm going to be talking about Project Hail Mary and my comparison between the audiobook and the movie. Okay, so Project Hail Mary is definitely one of my all-time favorite books. If you go back to my 2024 Reading Wrapped video, I have a whole section talking about this book. I absolutely loved it. I listened to the audiobook the first time that I read it, and that is by far the absolute best way to consume this story, in my opinion. I think that the production value of the audiobook is incredible, and the story is just so well told through that medium. So this year I re-listened to it with my husband, and he listened to it for the first time with me, and then we went and saw the movie in theaters. And this is just going to be kind of my recap about my thoughts on the movie, and yeah. Okay, so first things first, I am going to be spoiling the entire story and the entire movie in this video. So if you are interested in reading the book on your own at any point, or even going to see the movie and you do not want any spoilers, please don't watch this video. I'm going to be spoiling everything from beginning to end. So with that said, please click away if you don't want to see it. Otherwise, we're going to dive right in. Okay, so for those of you who don't know the story of Project Hail Mary, really quickly, Ryland Grace is our main character. He wakes up on a spaceship and he has no idea who he is, where he's at, what's going on. He has complete amnesia. And through the progress of the story, he remembers who he is and why he's there. Why he's there is to save humanity. So back on Earth, scientists discovered a life form that was stealing energy from the sun and basically ushering in a new global extinction event. And so everyone got their best scientists together, and by everyone I mean globally, got all of their best scientists together to make a plan, and that plan was the Hail Mary, to send several scientists out on an expedition to Tau Ceti, the only star in the solar system who was not impacted by this life form called astrophage, and to figure out why, and to hopefully send home an answer. The mission is a suicide mission, so the three scientists that are on the Hail Mary do not intend to come home. They just intend to collect the information and send it back to Earth, hopefully in time to have a solution. So the story follows Ryland as he kind of recalls all of this information, realizes that he's not going home, realizes that his crew members have died on the journey there, that he's alone in space to try to figure out how to save all of humanity. And on this mission, on this journey, he actually meets an alien life form who is in the same exact situation as him. So Ryland meets another alien life form who he names Rocky, and Rocky is from the planet Arid, and they are having the exact same problem that Earth is having. Their sun is dying because of astrophage, and they sent explorers here to Tau Ceti as well to try to figure out why astrophage is not killing Tau Ceti. So together they learn how to communicate with one another. They don't speak the same language, obviously, so they learn how to have a common language, and they learn how to do science together and conduct experiments, and they learn how to collect astrophage and its predators from its home planet of Adrian. And it's incredible. It's an amazing story of like camaraderie and companionship and sacrifice and tragedy, and there's humor and there's heavy science and math, and it sounds kind of heavy and like dense when I talk about it maybe, but I think that the way that Andy Weir has written the story, and especially the way when you listen to the novel and listen to the way that Ray Porter narrated the story, I think that it comes across a lot more as a humanitarian tale. It's not quite as like a slog to get through. It's enjoyable, and a person like me who I don't have a background in science, it's not necessarily, math is not something that is second nature to me. I love this story, and I feel like there's a really great balance of real science, real math, real consequences, and a real story of relationship building and helping one another and saving the world. So that's your like general overview. I glossed over a ton of information. I barely covered anything that happens in the book, but that's your kind of quick review of the plot of the story. So I'm going to talk about the movie a lot in this video. I think I am a huge, can I say huge one more time, enormous fan of the audiobook. I would recommend that anybody take the time to listen to the audiobook narrated by Ray Porter. It blew me away. Kenny loved it. My husband loved it. I have friends who I've recommended listen to it. They loved it. If you have 15 and a half hours, I highly recommend the audiobook to you. But I'm going to be talking about the movie and how I felt about that adaptation. Okay, so a few notes about the audiobook. It's narrated by Ray Porter. He does all of the voices. He narrates the entire thing. He does voices for all of the characters, of which there are many. Our three main are Ryland Grace, Rocky, the alien, and Strat, and she is a character who is on Earth who kind of controls and coordinates all of the efforts for Project Hail Mary. And then beyond that, there's many other government officials and others who kind of chime in throughout the book. But he does a really great job of making sure that each character feels like their own unique character. I feel like Ray Porter, to me, is Ryland Grace. Like, I hear him talk in interviews, and that is who he is to me now. Additionally, I think that the depiction of Rocky was really well done in the book. When you're reading it, he's the way he speaks is in music notes. It's printed as music notes on the page. And then the way that they made his voice was melodic, and they used different music notes, and then eventually they kind of put like a synthesized voice over top of these melodic sounds, and that became the voice of Rocky. And that, again, is also so unique. And when you hear those sounds, you know who that is, you know who it's referencing, right? You could have read the book physically, but I think that you got a lot more from the story by listening to it. So I would have thought that it would stand to be true that you could get even more from watching the movie. Overall, I didn't like the movie. I don't think that it was a good adaptation of the novel. I think on its own, as a standalone film, it was very well made. It's a beautiful movie. It's a good story. And I think that if you went into it having not read the book, knowing nothing about the story, I think that you could watch it and really enjoy it from start to finish. But having read the book, I do not feel as though it was a faithful adaptation almost at all. I think that they almost entirely assassinated the characters of Ryland and Rocky, dumbing them down to almost nothing. And I think that they cut a lot of the serious topics and themes in order to make it a more like lighthearted, family-friendly movie. And that kind of just completely erased all of the tension and the real life consequences and any kind of like world building in the book. I just feel like they failed on a lot of levels to bring this story to life on the screen. When I think about this book compared to other sci-fi movies that I love, like Interstellar or Arrival, I feel like they had so much source material that they could have worked with, and they did almost nothing with it. In 2.5 hours, I don't feel like they captured the feelings that I get from listening to 15.5 hours of an audiobook. Interstellar has almost the same runtime. It's 13 minutes longer, and that movie covers hard science and heavy concepts and you know, first contact with alien life and all of these and includes humor, you know, like all of these multi-layered themes and ideas. And I think Project Hail Mary just completely failed. I am struggling to not be too harsh. I don't want to it's not a trash movie, right? Like it's good, it's beautiful. There are some things that I really enjoyed, but as a person who was really looking forward to seeing this movie on screen, the last time when we re-listened to it, just, this last week, multiple occasions, I would go, oh, wow, I can't wait to see how they put that in the movie. I can imagine it in my brain how it's going. And I understand that I am one person and they can't make a movie for me. And yet I still feel as though they just didn't accomplish, they didn't do it, right? Like they didn't, I don't know. I'm kind of struggling to come up with the right words here, but let me get into some additional details and maybe that'll kind of help. Okay, so kind of going back to talking about other movies, other sci-fi movies, and comparing them to Project Hail Mary. So when I think about Interstellar, I think about how that movie had real life consequences throughout the entire story, right? Like Cooper making a mistake and it costing years back on Earth, and the realization that the mistake that he made not only cost the life of a crew member, but also his experience with his kids' entire childhoods. He was going to miss all of that because it was just gone now because of relativity. And that weight on him of, I fucked up and I really fucked up and I can't undo it. In reading Project Hail Mary, I feel like that was a feeling that I got a lot. There was kind of this overhanging tension of like, if Ryland fucks up, if he dies, if he ruins the astrophage samples, everyone on Earth will die. And I did not feel like the movie set up those stakes well enough for the audience. I think that it was kind of a background theme to Rocky and Ryland being buddies in the movie. It was not the center focus of the plot. And I think that is a major failing on the part of the movie. The plot is saving the world, and Rocky and Ryland being buddies and having this camaraderie and everything, that's awesome. And there were little bits of humor and growth and sarcasm, and I love all of that. But you can't just throw that out there and ignore the rest of the story that makes it what it is. Another part of that would be like death having meaning. Like when Doyle dies on the water planet, that's devastating and it's Cooper's fault and it's terrible and it's impacting the entire mission. And then later when Man dies, that's also devastating and they're angry and they've been betrayed, but it's also horrible to lose such an intelligent scientist. And I think in the book Project Hail Mary, there's a really good effort to make Yao and Ilyusha their own characters, even though we don't get to know them very much because they're dead when Ryland wakes up and we only get to kind of experience them in flashbacks. There does still seem to be character to them overall, and it's important when Ryland realizes who they are and that they are dead. And I think this kind of plays into that sense I'm talking about of just they removed a lot of the tension and a lot of the sadness and a lot of the serious things that this book tried to talk about. There's a quote that I want to read from the book. This is just after Ryland has a memory flashback. Was it true? Or is that just a random memory of me talking to someone who got sucked into a bogus doomsday theory? No, it's real. I'm terrified just thinking about it. And it's not just sudden terror. It's cozy, comfortable terror with a permanent seat at the table. I've felt it for a long time. This is real. The sun is dying and I'm tangled up in it. Not just as a fellow citizen of Earth who will die with everyone else. I'm actively involved. There's a sense of responsibility there. I still don't remember my own name, but I remember random bits of information about the Petrova problem. They call it the Petrova problem. I just remembered that. My subconscious has priorities, and it's desperately telling me about this. I think my job is to solve the Petrova problem. In a small lab, wearing a bedsheet toga with no idea who I am and no help other than a mindless computer and 2 mummified roommates. I do think that they did a really good job with the farewell sequence in the movie. His farewell to them, his speech, his monologue about how he would do his best and try to make sure that their deaths were not in vain. I think that that was really touching, and that worked really well. I just wanted some more flashbacks of them throughout the rest of the movie to build up on that emotional payoff. I wanted to see everyone coming together and learning how to operate as a crew, not just a couple of one-off lines from Ilyukna as she's making a joke. That kind of plays into a bigger thing that I'll talk about in a little bit as far as character assassination and feeling like they just didn't do a good job with any of the characters. But I feel overall that they just stripped all of the tension from the book and made it into this kind of lighthearted, soft around the edges story rather than the heavy, to me, somewhat devastating story that it was. So I wanted to kind of like read off a few of the scenes and plot points that they completely axed just for the purpose of the movie that I feel were important and integral to the story overall. So number one, the Talmiba eating all of the fuel and stranding Rocky and Ryland out in space, and the things that they had to do to get themselves back to Rocky's ship in order to save themselves. Gone. The discussion of climate impact was totally cut. There was like maybe a little bit of talk about how the earth would cool, but no larger discussion about climate impact of the sun dying. And the entire part of the book about them nuking the Antarctic in order to buy more time for the planet itself while actively killing and eradicating multiple species and biomes, gone. So that like kind of heaviness is just erased. The crew deciding their own ways to die was 2 or 3 one-off lines as the characters were walking down a hallway, and Yao, the captain, who had decided to kill himself with a gun, is not there. He makes a joke about, oh, I'll have what she's having, when Ilyukna talks about overdosing on heroin. And to me, that's the point of his character, first of all, is that if something went wrong with Ilyukna or Dubois' methods, he was going to be there to help take care of it. And the use of a gun is like an important character choice for Commander Yao. And to have him just be like, oh, I'll have what she's having. That felt so cheap. And in what was a very serious scene in the book, it was played for laughs. And that pissed me off. Another was when Strat very, very briefly in the movie touches on the fact that the planet will likely go to war over all of the remaining resources as the planet begins to die. And it just kind of, it's just like a, you know that people will die here. And it's not this long monologue about her background as a history major and what she knows will happen when people start dying of famine and how that looks on a global scale. And it, again, just destroys any sense of tension or real impact that Ryland could have back home. Finally, to me, probably one of the most pivotal, important scenes for Ryland, when he remembers that Strat not only drugged him and put him in a coma on the Hail Mary against his will, but she purposefully gave him a drug that would give him amnesia so that when he woke up, he would not remember that he didn't want to be there until it was too late, until he was far too invested in the project and would not be willing to give up on saving humanity. That is massive. That's a huge, it's not just that she went, no, you're the best one for the job, I'm so sorry, you're in a coma, here you go, goodbye. It was, actually, I'm also going to double check and make sure that you don't remember that we had this conversation. And I want to read to you the quote from the book at this point. I always assumed the American CIA would have the best interrogation drugs. But did you know it's actually the French? It's true. Their DGSE has perfected a drug that causes retrograde amnesia that lasts for long periods of time. Not just hours or days, but weeks. They used it during various anti-terror operations. It can be handy for a suspect to forget he was ever interrogated. I stared at her in horror. My throat hurt from yelling. Your medbed will give you a nice dose of it before you wake up. You and your crewmates will just assume it's a side effect of the coma. Yao and Ilyukna will explain the mission to you, and you'll roll right into getting to work. The French assure me the drug doesn't erase trained skills, language, or anything like that. By the time your amnesia wears off, you guys might have already sent the Beatles back. And if not, my guess is you'll be too far invested in the project to give up. I think that it really speaks to Strat's convictions. She knows what she's doing, and she is convinced that she is doing the right thing, even at the cost of another human life. And that is a heavy, hard concept. I don't think that Strat is necessarily supposed to be a character that you like. I think that she is supposed to be a hard ass. I think that when this point in the book comes, you're supposed to find her to be a bit of a villain, even if it got Grace to this point where he has almost completely succeeded. And to water that down to a 2-minute conversation where she barely talks about the impacts that will be experienced on Earth if Grace says no, and then says, okay, well, I'm sorry about what I have to do next. And then there's a chase scene. It just didn't read the same for me at all. It didn't feel the same. It didn't feel as heavy or as important at all. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to talk about that I mentioned at the beginning of the video was the assassination of the characters that I felt was just unforgivable. I guess maybe that's a little too harsh. Ryland Grace and Rocky are scientists. Rocky is a highly intelligent engineer, and Ryland Grace is a doctor of microbiology. They are incredibly intelligent, smart people, beings. And Ryland was watered down, and he became almost a bumbling idiot, and Rocky was made into a cute alien dog. And it just, the number of times throughout the book that Ryland applauds Rocky for being an incredible engineer and talks about how he can't believe how he can just whip something up and fix something, and the random inventions that Rocky just comes up with on the fly. There's a whole part of the book where they're communicating through the xenonite glass with each other, and Rocky's just busy toiling away, working on a thing, and Ryland kind of assumes maybe it's something for his ship. And then after about 20 minutes of book time, you realize that Rocky has been working on a bubble that he can be in so that he can go into Ryland's ship, and he's just been casually toiling away at it and figures it out. And that's just one example of multiple times where Rocky just creates a solution. And in the movie, there's one pass away, throwaway line towards the end where Ryland says something about how, well, we got the Talmiba farms up and going thanks to Rocky. But there was never an appreciation for what Rocky could actually do. He was just this cute little robot character running around making cute noises, and it frustrates me. Like, that's not what Rocky was. As far as Ryland, I knew from the first 2 minutes of the movie that they weren't going to do justice by his character. He wakes up in the book not knowing where he is, not knowing who he is, and immediately starts experiments. He figures out that he's in 0G gravity, and he figures out that he's not at the sun but actually headed toward Tau Ceti, and all of these various things. He doesn't freak out. He might, he freaks out a little, but it's not like a full-on crash out like in the movie. He wakes up from this coma, he just fully crashes out and goes through all of his crew members' belongings and gets into Ilyukna's vodka. And it's, in the book, he doesn't get into her drink until the end when there's something worth celebrating. And he makes a specific point to note that it's painful to look at and go through his crew members' personal belongings. And he says something about, maybe I'll do this again at a later time and actually sort through them. But it's not portrayed that way at all at the beginning of the movie. He's like rifling through things and putting on people's hats and putting on other clothing and looking at pictures and being sad and drinking the vodka. And it's not the Ryland Grace that I read about in the book, and it thoroughly pissed me off. Okay, so my battery died and I'm back and maybe a little more calm. I think that I've just maybe taken a lot of personal offense to the movie. It was a good movie, and I'm really still kind of living in the immediate aftermath feelings from watching it last night. I just think that they took these two incredibly intelligent creatures and they dumbed them down to the lowest common denominator so that everybody could go see the movie and not have to worry about feeling like they didn't understand the science or they didn't understand what was going on. And that just sucks. It's not a difficult book to read and understand. If you can watch Interstellar, if you can watch Arrival, then you can understand the concepts of this book. And to take away almost all of the hard science and math in exchange for some silly dancing scenes with Ryan Gosling and a puppet just feels like they changed the movie to be for fun, silly, heartwarming laughs rather than to be true to the original tale. And I take some personal offense to that, I guess. I don't know. I'm just disappointed. I was really excited and I was hoping for more, and I think that they could have delivered more. And I think instead they went down the route of, let's just make it easy to consume and let's make Rocky really cute and fun so that we can sell a bunch of merch and not focus on the hard, heavy topics that the book talked about. Okay, I do want to talk about some things that I did enjoy about the movie because I didn't hate it entirely. So first of all, I thought that they did a really great job with the visuals, especially with the planet Adrian. I thought that that looked incredible. The greens and the yellows, which I tried to kind of pay homage to with my makeup today. The kind of cloudy, foggy, overcast look of that planet. I thought the visuals were great, and I thought that the Hail Mary itself was a really beautiful set. I thought that Rocky himself looked really good. He was a little less spider-like than what the book had depicted him as, and I think maybe a little bit smaller, but he still looked really good. And I really appreciated that they did a mix of CGI and a puppet, and I think that that quality really shows through in the movie. I think that it looks really neat when you can see the puppet articulating its fingers and interacting with Ryan Gosling. So I think that they did a really great job with Rocky, and I thought that the kind of addition of some carvings and different features on his carapace were really great and added some additional like cultural elements and individuality to him overall. So that was awesome. I thought that Ryan did a pretty good job. Like, I don't think that he had a terrible performance. I just don't think that his depiction of Ryland Grace was my favorite. And he is listed as a producer on the movie, but I don't know if that was a choice made by him or other people. So I can't like discount his ability to act, even though I'm disappointed in the character in the movie. In fact, like, I think that there were a couple parts that really did capture the essence of Ryland, and the one that comes to mind was at the beginning of the movie when he's trying to figure out how astrophage get to Venus and trying to replicate Venusian light, and he's kind of walking through building this box with Carl, the military security guard guy. And I think that whole scene, maybe not the one where they're at Lowe's like chucking tape into the cart, but I think the scene where he's building the box and kind of describing how it works and then having to find the astrophage after it disappears off the slide, that felt like Ryland to me. Him explaining the science, but also still kind of being goofy and having some humor. So I felt like that was a really great part of the movie. Okay, so there were a few things that I actually completely forgot to mention and talk about that I'm going to shoehorn here in the end, because I actually think that they're really important, and like, it was part of my whole case for why the movie didn't do a super great job. First, when Rocky saves Ryland when the ship is spinning out of control, that is his own sacrifice to go and save Ryland. And in the movie, Rocky gets himself back into his side of the bubble and closes the wall back up. But in the book, Ryland wakes up after having been saved from Rocky and then has to save Rocky and put him back into his side of the bubble. And I feel like that was really important to their relationship, that they both sacrificed for one another to be able to continue the mission. Rocky almost killed himself. Ryland injured himself very seriously. And to to kind of take away that moment where Ryland then is, just coming off of almost dying and passing out and asphyxiating to, oh my God, I have to save my friend and the ship's still spinning out of control. Just all of that high tension is just gone because Rocky took care of it. Don't worry about it. I feel like that really deteriorated any kind of tension and worry that we were feeling for Rocky. He got himself back into his bubble. He'll be fine. Like, I didn't feel the same amount of, oh my God, is he going to make it? Is he going to be okay? As I did when reading the book. Perhaps one of my biggest nitpicks about this book, Ryland was not supposed to see Rocky's ship. That's insane. There's multiple points in the book where Ryland makes a comment about how it would be so cool to get to see the ship, and he's jealous that Rocky gets to come over to his side, but he doesn't. It's because Rocky's atmosphere is so much more than Ryland's that he would just immediately be crushed. So number one there. And number two, Rocky is smaller than Ryland. The point is that the ship, as big as it is, the tunnels inside of the ship would be too small for Ryland to fit. And so then to make it this kind of metaphysical light and sound and waves and I didn't need to see the inside of the ship. I didn't need you to make that up for me. It took away from the mystery of the Iridians and Rocky. I didn't need that extra strange detail. That was not true to the story, and he should have never seen the inside of the ship. That's crazy. Okay, so a couple things about Strat. Number one, in the movie, I cannot understand why they felt the need to try to humanize her. She is a very cold, hard person. She knows exactly what she needs to do to try to save the world, and she's going to do it no matter what. And she didn't need to be humanized. And I feel as though that's what they were trying to do with her coming into the officers club and singing her karaoke song about just stop your crying, it's a sign of the times. I don't need Strat to sing a Harry Styles song. I need her to be a hard ass and to keep everyone in line to save the world. And it just took away from her character. She drugged Ryland and put him on a spaceship off to his death with no qualms about it. I don't think that she would have spent any of her time singing a song in front of everyone and then being like, okay, bye. That was crazy. The other part about her that I was missing, she never called Ryland a coward. And I feel like that was essential to his character. He was a coward. He was too scared to get on the ship and go save humanity. He was going to stay on Earth. And, whatever reasonings in his head made sense about being there for the children, he was too scared to go help save the world. And when she called him on his shit, that hurt and that was hard for him, but I also think he needed that moment of her calling him a coward to then later in the story realize that he wasn't going to do that again. And that was what pushed him to send the Beatles back home and go save Rocky. So without that moment of realization that, that is his inherent character, but he's going to choose to do something different, I feel like they kind of ruined that moment of self-actualization for Ryland. And again, they were trying to maybe soften Strat by not having her actively call him out on his bullshit. And I don't think that it did either of those characters any favors. Okay, and then finally, and this is just a little dumb thing, while I was scrolling on Reddit looking for other people's opinions, I found someone who called the book zany. And I have a massive personal, the book is not zany. It's humorous, absolutely. The book is not zany. The book is heavy and sad and tragic and scary. Not horror scary, but just existentially scary. And there's some humor thrown in. The closest thing to zany is at the end of the book when Rocky says, "Fist me," and Ryland says, "No, it's just fist bump, buddy." It's not, I cannot believe that anyone would have ever called this book zany and as an excuse for the way that the movie really capitalized on the humor and making everything a little silly pun and making Rocky really amusing. That's not the tone that I got from this book, even a little bit. And I think that that's honestly quite a reach. So as I wrap up everything here, I want to just say, it's possible that I've been a little too harsh or a little too critical on the movie, but I think overall, like, the general public is a lot smarter than Hollywood gives us credit for. Like, again, referencing Interstellar and how they did not back down on any of the science in that movie, and yet it is still a very popular, well-renowned movie. I just would have really loved to see more math and science and give us some heavier topics to grapple with rather than swapping those out for just a few extra fun laughs. I wish that they would have treated the audience as though we had a little bit more intelligence than I feel they did. I would still encourage anyone to go see the movie. I think it was an enjoyable watch, and if it gets you to actually read the book, then that's awesome. I will be really interested to give the movie a rewatch in a few months or a year from now when I have a little more space from my most recent reread and maybe not quite as emotional about it. But I think that it's a good enough movie if you want just a little story about space, and I would encourage you to go see it. So that's it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, maybe tell me down below your favorite part of Project Hail Mary, either the book or the movie. If you think that I'm completely crazy and out of my mind for hating the movie, please let me know why down below. And if you've never seen the movie or never read the book and you have no intention to, maybe just comment a little Saturn emoji or something like that so I know you made it to the end. That is all I've got for you today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you guys next time. Bye. Okay, let's one more again.